6.8, using one percentage to find another. So it says here in the notes that there's no notes should be required. If we think to percentages and probability, it should kind of make sense. So if 40% of the world's population were left-handed, then that would mean that 60% of the population would be right-handed. If 17% of the population needed glasses, then that would mean that 83% don't need glasses. So it's just important to remember that all percentages add to 100. 6.9, expressing one quantity as a percentage of another. To express one quantity as a percentage of another, divide the first quantity by the second and then multiply by 100. The other thing to note here is that everything should be in the same units. And we can see that in the first example. So it says express 60 centimetres as a percentage of 4 metres. So we could do this by changing the 60 centimetres into metres, or we could change the 4 metres into centimetres. And it's easier to change into the smaller unit. So centimetres are smaller than metres. So if we change 4 metres into the smaller unit of centimetres, that means that's going to be 400 centimetres. So 60 centimetres is going to be 60 over 400. So essentially what we're trying to do is you get 60 in a test out of 400 marks, what's your percentage? And the way you do that is you divide them and then multiply by 100. Now we've got a fraction multiplied by 100, so it would be best to put that over 1. And we can look to see where we can cancel. So we can cancel the 400 and the 100, and that will leave 1 and 4. And we can cancel the 60 and the 4. They're both divisible by 4 to give 15 and 1. So what we have then, multiplying across, you get 15 times 1, so that's 15, over 1 times 1, which is 1. So 15 over 1 is 15. And the answer is going to be a percentage, so it's 15%. Example 2, express 1,200 grams as a percentage of 3 kilograms. So kilograms is a bigger unit than grams, so we'd be best to change that into 3,000 grams. So we've got 1,200 over 3,000. Then we need to multiply that by 100. And again, put that over 1 because we're multiplying a number by a fraction. So we're looking to see where we can cancel. We can divide 3,000 and 100 by 100 to leave 1 and 30. And then the 1,200 and the 30. So we could divide 3 by 10 first of all, and that would leave 120 and 3. And then we can divide 120 by 3 to leave 40 and 1. So then multiplying across, you have 40 times 1, which is 40. On the bottom, 1 times 1, which is 1. So 40 over 1 simplifies to 40, and that should be 40%. And now we're ready to try these questions. So exercise 4H on page 75 or on page 77 in the new book. Finding a percentage of a quantity. So to find a percentage of a quantity, we change the percentage to a fraction or a decimal and then multiply. So we've done in the past a fraction of an amount, and we've done multiplying numbers by decimals. So rather than doing any different strategy, that's our go-to. So 60% as a fraction, so that's 60 over 100, and that simplifies to 6 over 10, or 3/5. So now if we're going to do 3/5 multiplied by 120, because remember the word of means multiply, so that's going to be multiplied by 120, which we'll put over 1. 120 and 5 can be simplified. They're both divisible by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 120 divided by 5 is 24. Looks as if we could cancel the 3 and the 24, but remember we can't cancel sideways. We can only cancel top and bottom. So then we need to multiply across. So 3 times 24 is 72. And 1 times 1 is 1. So the answer is 72 over 1, which is 72. So that's by changing the 60% into 60 over 100, changing it into fraction. But of course, we could do it by changing it into a decimal. So we'll do example 4 in that way. So 45% is 0.45. So divide by 100. So then if we've got 740 multiplied by 0.45, so I'll show you the non-calculator way of doing that. Obviously, if you've got a calculator, you'd just be putting 740 multiplied by 0.45 and getting the answer. But what we have to do first of all is multiply by 5. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20, so 0 and carry a 2. And then 5 times 7 is 35, and 2 is 37. Then we need to multiply by 40 really, so it's the 4, which represents 40, so we're considering this to be 45. And to do that, we put down a 0 first of all, and then we multiply by 4. So then we've got 4 times 0, which is 0. 4 times 4 is 16, 6 and carry a 1. And then 4 7s are 28 and 1's 29. And then we add these together. So 0 and 0 is 0. 0 and 0 is 0. 7 and 6 is 13. 3 and carry a 1. 9 and 1's 10, plus 3 is 13. 3 and carry a 1. And then 2 and 1's 3. Now, in the question, there were a total of 2 decimal places. So that means in our answer, there has to be a total of 2 decimal places. The decimal place will go after the third 3 and before the first 0, so that we've got our 2 decimal places there. So the answer is going to be 333, and because we were finding 45% of £740, the answer is £333. And now you'll be ready to attempt exercise 4I on page 78 if you're using the old book, or page 80 if you're using the new one. 6.11 percentage change. If the price of an item has increased by 20%, this means it is now equal to, so originally it was 100%, add on your 20% increase, so that gives you a total of 120%. Now I know sometimes we think that percentages are out of 100 and the maximum value you can get is 100%, but whenever we're increasing values, the new percentage is compared to the original one, and this value is obviously bigger because it's been increased by 20%. So if it started off as 100%, the answer is going to be bigger than that. So our value is 120%. We can convert this into a decimal. So to get from a percentage into a decimal, we divide by 100. So 120 divided by 100 is 1.2. And this 1.2 is called the multiplying factor. So the increased percentage written as a decimal is the multiplying factor. If the price had been decreased by 10%, so originally we would have 100%, and then we're taking away 10%, that gives us 90%. Then to change 90% into a decimal, so write in the new percentage into a decimal, divide by 100, the decimal point is after the 0, move it twice, and you get 0.9. So 0.9 would be the multiplying factor. So remember, for increase, you're going to add it on. For decrease, you're going to take away. And once you've got the new percentage, you divide by 100 to get it into a decimal. And now you should be ready to attempt exercise 4J, questions 1 to 32 on page 81 if you're using the old book, or page 83 if you're using the new books. So now we're going to look at examples of using our multiplying factor to increase and decrease amounts by percentages. So to increase 100 or 200 by 40%, what we've got to do now, there are different ways in which we can do this. So we could find 40% and then add it on. And we could do that by changing 40% into a fraction or into a decimal. But looking at it in terms of this multiplying factor, so if we start off with 100% and we add on our 40%, that gives us 140%, which as a multiplying factor is 1.4. So if we do 200 and multiply by 1.4, so 200 multiplied by 14 first of all, multiplied by the 4. So 4 zeros are 0, 4 zeros are 0, 4 twos are 8. Then we need to multiply by 10. So put down a 0 multiplied by 1. 1 zeros are 0, 1 zeros are 0, 1 twos are 2. Add those on and we get 0, 0, 8, 2. The question had a total of 1 decimal place, so our answer has to have 1 decimal place, which means it's going to go between the two zeros. So our answer there is 280. Decrease £80 by 12%. So originally we have 100%, and we're going to take away 12%. So decrease is subtract. That gives us 88%, which as a multiplying factor is going to be 0.88. So what we need to do is multiply £80 by 0.88. So if we multiply by 8 first of all, so 8 zeros are 0, 8 eights are 64. Then we'll multiply by 80. So we'll put down a 0 and multiply by 8. So 8 zeros are 0, 8 eights are 64. So 4 and the 6, we'll add those. 0, 4, 10, so 0 and carry a 1. And that's 70. The question had a total of 2 decimal places. Our answer should have a total of 2 decimal places. So we're going to put the decimal point between the 0 and the 4. So what we have then is an answer of £70 and 40 pence. Example 7, £130 table is reduced by 21% in a sale. Find the sale price. So we've got 100%. And in the sale, it's been reduced, so we're taking away 21%, which is going to leave us as 79%. And as a multiplying factor, that's 0.79. So we've got 130 multiplied by 0.79. So we're going to multiply by 79 to do that. We'll multiply by 9 first of all. So 9 zeros are 0, 9 threes are 27, 7 and carry a 2. 9 ones are 9 and 2 is 11. Then we'll multiply by 70. We'll put our 0 down first of all and multiply by 7. 7 zeros are 0, 7 threes are 21, 1 and carry a 2. 7 ones are 7 and 2 is 9. So let's add these. 0 and 0 is 0, 7 and 0 is 7, 1 and 1 is 2, and 1 and 9 is 10. In the question, we had 2 decimal places, which means in our answer, we're going to have 2 decimal places. We'll put the decimal point between the 2 and the 7, and the answer then is going to be £102 and 70 pence. And remember, in these 2 examples, so 6 and 7, we need the 0 because whenever we're dealing with currency, we work to 2 decimal places. And now you'll be able to try questions in exercise 4K, page 82 in the old book or 84 in the new book. Questions 1, 2, 3, 11, 13, 14, 17, 18, 27 and 29. 6.12, repeated percentage change. So percentage change can be applied multiple times. So we can have events that change year on year or week on week, or time period on a time period. So a car depreciates by 50% in the first year and then 20% in the second year. So let's look at the first year. So it's 100% and then it's reduced by 50%, which means that 50% is left. and as a multiplying factor, that's 0.5. 0.5, of course, is just a half. So what we're going to do is we're going to find half of 150,000. And for this, we don't need to do any form of calculation. We should just be able to half it. So at year one, it's going to cost 75, or its value is going to be 75,000. Year two, what we've got then is, at this stage, it's worth 100%. So the value it's currently worth is 100%. And then we're going to reduce it by 20%. And that means it's going to be worth 80% of the year one value. So we're not looking at this as a percentage of what it was originally, but at the end of year two, it'll be 80% of the year one value. And 80% is 0.8 as a multiplying factor. So we're going to do 75,000 multiply by 0.8. So really we're just going to multiply by 8 and then put in our decimal points at the end. So 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 5 is 40, so that's 0 and carry a 4. 8 sevens are 56 and 4 is 60. Now in the question, we've had one decimal place in the 0.8. So in our answer, there should be one decimal place, which is going to be between the last two zeros. So that means that the value of the car is going to be £60,000. Now, one of the things to note here is that in the question, it said depreciates, and that's a word that we know means to decrease. So depreciation means to decrease, to go down in price. The opposite of depreciation is appreciation. So if it said the car appreciates, then that would mean that the price would increase. Which takes us to example 9. A bank account offers an interest rate of 5% on your current total at the end of each year. Find the interest earned after 2 years if you put in £1,000 and make no further changes. Okay, so at year one, what we've got is 100% and we're adding on 5% interest. So that's 105%, which is 1.05. So we're going to have 1,000 multiplied by 1.05. Now, rather than doing this as 1,000 multiplied by 1.05, a much easier way to do that would be 1.05 multiplied by 1,000. So what we're doing is we're moving the decimal point 3 places. And to do that, we get 1050. So that means at the end of year one, we're going to have £1,050 in our bank account. Year two, we're going to earn 5% interest on the 1,050. So we're going to have to do 1,050 multiplied by 1.05. Now this time we can't just move the decimal point 3 times. We have to do it the long way. So we're going to multiply by 5 first of all. And 5 times 0 is 0. 5 5s are 25, 5 and carry a 2. 5 zeros are 0 plus the 2 that we carried. And then 5 1s are 5. Multiplying the 0 is going to do nothing. So we can just multiply by the 100. So rather than putting in zeros for the 1.05, we can just jump on to the 1. So to multiply by 100, we put 2 zeros down and then multiply by 1. So 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 1 is 1. And then add these. So 0 and 0 is 0, 5 and 0 is 5, 2 and 0 is 2, 5 and 5 is 10, so 0 and carry a 1, which means the next column will be a 1 and a 1 at the start. In the question, there were a total of 2 decimal places, which means there's going to be a total of 2 decimal places in our answer. So we're going to go between the 2 and the 5, which means in the bank account, we're going to have £1,102.50. Now the question asked was find the interest earned. What we just worked out is the total amount. So what we need to do is subtract our £1,000 from that. And we get £102.50. So the interest earned after 2 years was £102.50. And this is an example of compound interest, which is something that we'll learn in more detail next year. And now you should be able to give exercise 4K, questions 36, 39 to 41, a good go.